Hi, I'm Katie Crane, and this is the Pilates Lounge. Hi everyone, my name's Katie Crane. I'm the Pilates professional, and welcome to another episode of the Pilates Lounge podcast. Today I'm going to be conversing with you about people who overcome adversity. As a Pilates professional and having worked with tens of thousands of different people over the years, there are definitely some standout personality traits that come with people who succeed in overcoming chronic conditions, chronic pain, and disease. The thing is, when we work with people, we are fascinated by them. You know, not a day goes by that I don't observe people, whether they're coming into the studio, whether they're walking past me on the street. And it's almost like every person that we come across has their own story, and every person is a puzzle just waiting to be solved. And it's a wonderful thing to be able to work with people in an industry where we see such positive things happen to people, but it can also be heart-wrenching when we work with somebody who does not achieve their goals. Because we know as Pilates professionals that when people do achieve what it is that they set out to, it can truly be life-changing. And it's such a beautiful thing to be a part of, is somebody's success. But to be a part of that success, I feel like we really need to understand people. And so I'm hoping that this episode might shed some light on the way people are. And if we understand people better with more clarity, then potentially we can be part of that driving force to help people succeed. Because quite often a new client will come to us with what seems to be an insurmountable goal. And even for us as movement educators, Pilates professionals, health advocates, sometimes it can seem to us that what that person is hoping for is out of this world. But other times it can seem almost blasé to us what it is that somebody is hoping to achieve. And the most simple goal can often be never achieved, simply because people get in their own way. So if we can understand this better, then I'm hoping that we can be part of the positive changes that might need to happen in somebody's story for them to be able to achieve greatness. So why is it that some people overcome adversity and others just don't? One of the things that I see over and over again, the person who achieves their goal, their reason to succeed is greater than their excuse not to. So if we can understand somebody's why, what is their reason, or what is their story, what is their why that is going to keep them coming back? And that story is so different for every single person. And it's a very individual, a very unique, and a very personal reason. For example, you might be working with somebody elderly who has just had grandchildren, and maybe their reason to succeed is for them to be around for as their grandchild grows up. And maybe they're not in the greatest shape at the moment. And if that reason is greater than their excuse not to do the work, so maybe their excuse is, I didn't come to Pilates yesterday because the plumber was coming to the house, or something else like that. I didn't come to class yesterday because I had a headache. I didn't come to class yesterday because my car needed servicing. I didn't come to class because whatever the reason is. But normally somebody's reason not to come to class is more like an excuse, because if their reason to succeed was bigger than that excuse, then either they would have made an alternative appointment, or they would have made sure that they had some homework that they could do, or they would have made sure that whatever else it is that they had going on in their life, they rearranged their schedule to make sure that Pilates came first. So for that person who has decided that they're going to come to Pilates because they want to be able to enjoy having their grandchildren and actively play a role in the grandchildren growing up, that reason needs to be solid. It needs to be something that really hits home for them. Some people, sometimes somebody's reason is very, very clear, especially when it comes to overcoming pain or an injury or dealing with a disease. But that reason has to always be greater than their excuse, always. And it's important for us as Pilates professionals to know what our client's reason is. What is their why? Why are they coming to Pilates? What is their goal? And I believe if we can really tap into and understand the reason, then we can help people commit to their Pilates. And it's not about somebody just showing up for our sake from a business perspective. It's about helping people show up so that then they can get the results that they need, because Pilates is not a magic pill. I mean, the number of times I've heard somebody ask me, they start Pilates, they're like, oh, this is great. This is amazing. But how many times am I going to have to come? How often am I going to have to come? How long until I can reach my goal? Well, it isn't linear. We know that much because life happens. Life isn't linear. So many things get in the way. Things change in our lives. Maybe you come to Pilates. Let's take that example of the person who wants to be fit and healthy and capable, able to enjoy having their grandchildren around. They're not in the best shape. And then next week they fall over and they hurt their hip. So even though when we first meet the person who comes into the studio, we might have what looks like a linear pathway for them to reach their goals, but then things get in the way of that all the time. So they might be progressing as we're hoping that they could, but then they fall over and they hurt their knee, or they get sick and they don't come to class for a couple of sessions, or they go on holiday and they don't do their homework. So we can't really tell people how long it's going to take for them to reach their goal because we don't know what's going to happen in their life. But we can help somebody set goals that are achievable if they do show up. And we can give people alternative options if they can't show up. So a home program, maybe you've got some online lessons that people can turn to. Maybe you've got some literature that people can read. Maybe you do articles or blogs that people can read so that they can digest more information that's going to keep them on their pathway to success. But definitely understanding their story is key, because you can then refer back to their story and keep them motivated. Because part of the reason somebody comes to Pilates is because they don't have either the know-how, the motivation, or the ability to help themselves at home. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in the studio in the first place. People who overcome adversity or people who succeed are committed to overcoming. And that goes along with what I just spoke about, which is they know their why, but no matter what, they're going to do whatever it takes for them to achieve what it is that they want to achieve. Nothing else is going to get in the way. So if they get sick and they miss a session 1 week, they're going to come twice the next week. If they know that they're going away on a holiday, then they're going to ramp up the time away to coming multiple times to the studio to make sure that they're getting everything that they can. They're already prepared. They know that they're going to be going away, so they know what homework they need to do while they're away. Or you've helped them find a Pilates studio while they're away. So they have strategies to continue the work. So somebody who overcomes adversity is completely committed to overcoming it. They don't have any excuse that gets in the way. We've been working with this really lovely gentleman, and he came to us. His why was that he's going to be going overseas on a fly fishing trip in July. It really didn't give us a lot of time to get him prepared, but we have a lot of resources for him. We have online classes for him to follow. We've given him a home program. We've got some really basic things that he can do at home every single day. And he's committed to coming to the studio twice a week. Now, we've been very clear with this client that Pilates is not a magic pill, but if he is committed, then we can definitely ensure that the holiday that he goes on is going to allow him to do more activity than what he would have been doing if he hadn't started with us. And we give him very clear set goals of what we want him to achieve, but then he needs to be committed. And he fell sick, so we've only got a couple of months with him, and then he fell sick and he didn't come to the class for a couple of weeks. So what do? We send him emails checking in on him, asking him if he's practicing his home program. Now, we can't be there holding somebody's hand, but we can keep our communication lines open so that if he is truly committed, we know that we've got everything set in place for him to succeed. It's up to him to follow through. So he needs to decide if he's that committed. All the time we see people come, they start out with the best intentions, but if their reason isn't strong enough, then quite often unfortunately, they do fall off the wayside. Unfortunately, a lot of people are looking for us to fix them. And it's just not how Pilates works. The magic of Pilates is not in us giving somebody all the information. The magic is in the person committing to the work and doing the work consistently. And these are the people who take full responsibility for themselves. So whether they have an injury, whether they're suffering from a disease, or whether they are overcoming a battle that they've been having with their body, they take full responsibility. We used to work with injured service people for many, many years. We were the studio that the Army sent all of their severely injured service people to, and these were people who were no longer able to serve in the Army, and so their only option was to get out of the Army and join civilian life. And for a lot of these people, they don't know anything but the Army, and the training that they've done is very specific to the work that they do, and it doesn't necessarily transpire to a civilian occupation. The people in this group, and we worked with these people for 9 years, so we saw a lot of different service people who were no longer able to serve in the Army and had to either get retrained to get a completely different job, or they had to take the job that they were doing and try and translate it to a civilian job. The people that walked away from us happy were the ones who took full responsibility for their outcome. And that is a very, very hard pill to swallow, because it happened with these guys. And we also see a similar scenario happen to motor vehicle accident claims and workplace injury claims. There's nothing worse than having something happen to you that you feel like is not your fault. And it bruises the ego even more and can be even more detrimental when you don't have the support of either your workplace, your insurer, or whoever it is that was under whoever's duty of care you were under when such event occurred. If you don't have their support, this can be a horrible, horrible experience. But the people who suffer the most are the people who don't take full responsibility. So if you injure yourself at work, maybe under work cover, it's the workers, it's your employer's fault as far as insurance is concerned. That's fine. So a lot of people come to us, they've had an injury at work, but ultimately that person needs to take full responsibility. I mean, we've seen some crazy things in the studio, and sometimes you've got to wonder how things like insurance do operate, because, for example, we had somebody who came to the studio and they ended up with a disc bulge that was claimed under work cover after they had to crawl under their desk to pull out their computer cord, and that is apparently what blew out their disc. As a Pilates practitioner and as a movement professional, I know that that's actually not how you end up with a disc bulge. I mean, your spine is so strong. Think about it. Like we see like these strong men pushing cars down the street, or, an Olympic, what are they called? When they do like the snatch and thrust of those really heavy weights. I can't think of what they're called. But, like people are like lifting hundreds of kilograms overhead sometimes. Like our ability and our spine's ability to take load is pretty unreal. So if you go under a desk and you pull out a cord and you end up with a disc bulge, it's actually, is it your work's fault, or was it your fault for not exercising, for not living a healthy lifestyle? I mean, honestly, you don't blow a disc by just going under a desk and pulling something out. What happens, this is an accumulative effect of poor lifestyle choices. And for most of us, if we end up with some sort of injury, or for like 98% of diseases, which are lifestyle diseases, those are an accumulation of choices that we've made throughout our life until we get to a point where our body is no longer capable of maintaining homeostasis. So the balance that the body is meant to be in. Our body is no longer capable of performing everyday tasks. So people who overcome these adversities, they are the ones who take full responsibility. So maybe it doesn't feel good to be responsible for our own health. Like that can be a very, very hard pill to swallow. And for a lot of people, it's actually easier to play the blame game. But I can tell you now, the blame game gets very tiring, and in the end, you're never going to win. The only way you win, the only way you overcome anything is by taking full responsibility, even if you don't truly believe that it was your responsibility. It really doesn't matter what happens to us. And this goes with everything in life. I mean, the universe throws you curveballs. You can either sit there and get thrown those curveballs and eventually get beaten to a pulp by whatever it is that the universe is throwing you, or you can learn to dodge the curveballs or to catch the curveballs and throw them back. And maybe when you start off by throwing those curveballs back to the universe, you fail. You're not very good at it. You don't have a strong arm. You're not good at catching. That whatever it is that you're throwing back, it lands just in front of you. You trip over it again, and you keep failing over and over and over again. But the only way around it or over it is by taking full responsibility. That's just my observation in people who overcome injury, disease, pain, anything that's going on in their life. And that's not to say that horrible things aren't happening to people. Of course, there are things that happen to people that are just completely blow your mind. You just wonder, how on earth can some things happen to the most beautiful people? People are not always asking for what happens to them, but if we don't take responsibility, then we become a victim. So we can either have a victim mentality or we can have the hero's mentality. And it can be a very, very, very difficult path to step up and end up with the hero's mentality. But it's actually the only way we thrive and we overcome things that happen to us. People who overcome adversity, they learn to trust themselves more so than they seek answers from others. This is another observation. Sometimes we have somebody start with us and they have a lot of questions. And questions can be gold, because when somebody is asking questions, they have the mentality like they want to learn. They're hungry for answers, and that can be a very positive attribute. But at some stage, asking questions has to turn into knowing the answers. Because if somebody just keeps asking questions, and if they don't accept responsibility, or if they don't take those answers and work with them, if they just keep asking questions, then they're actually not putting into practice the answers that they're receiving or the information that they're receiving. So eventually what happens is we just have to start trusting the process. And magic happens when we start trusting the process. So I think of it a little bit like, some people go to the doctor for absolutely everything. Got a headache, go to the doctor. Got a cold, go to a doctor. Got a sore hip, go to the doctor. You could do that for absolutely everything, but it's actually never going to give you any answers. What it will do is give you some sort of medication that is going to be a Band-Aid approach to whatever it is that you've got going on. The reality of it is we don't always have the answers. A lot of the time, the answers that we are given by somebody who has more experience than us, more knowledge than us, somebody that we see as a leader, and maybe that's your Pilates instructor, maybe that's your GP, maybe it's your physio, maybe it's your mum and dad, then they are sharing their perception of what is happening. It's not necessarily the truth or the facts. There's this thing called that is my truth. And when somebody says, well, that's my truth, that's their reality or that's their perception. And when we start to trust ourselves, then we don't have to keep looking for answers from other people. Because the thing is, when I give you my observation, then that is my observation of my understanding of everything today. But then my understanding of everything today changes tomorrow. And as I continue to learn, and I believe that we're all here to learn, this is what life is just lessons. As my lessons continue, then my perception starts to change. So if you asked me something today, it's going to be different my answer is going to be different to what it would have been if you'd asked me 5 years ago. And it's going to be different if you ask me in another 5 years. So while it is important for us as practitioners to share our experience, to share our knowledge, and I think that it's really important for us to be able to have open conversations with our clients that they can ask questions, them always asking questions and us always giving them answers isn't necessarily going to get them to where they want to be. And it isn't necessarily going to help them overcome whatever hurdles it is that they've got in their way. What does help them overcome the hurdles, adversity, is letting them know that they have everything that it takes to be able to overcome whatever they've got going on. So if anything, as a Pilates practitioner, I create a safe space in the studio where we might have open conversation, but the client is the one leading me and the client is the one guiding themselves. I'm just a safe space. I'm just an open vessel. And I think that that's really, really important. So for example, I don't spend a heck of a lot of time telling people that what they're doing is wrong, or trying to change the way that somebody's moving. I don't tell somebody when to breathe, not unless it really is going to make a big difference to them. If when they're doing something on the machine, they're not doing it exactly how I perceive is the right way, I don't necessarily change what they're doing. I might ask them, does that feel good? Does that feel supported? Is there any pain at the moment? Does that alleviate your pain? Does it increase your pain, or is what you're doing Goldilocks? So Goldilocks is just right, So is that load too heavy, too light, or Goldilocks? I'm learning from the person rather than always telling them exactly what it is that they should be doing. And that way, I'm actually teaching my clients to trust themselves, because that's a big part of people overcoming injury and pain and even disease. Yes, I am a believer that our body is capable of healing from absolutely anything. And I'm not woo woo at all. I've just seen it happen. I have seen people overcome the most horrendous experiences that you could ever imagine. But then I've seen people with really basic injuries that should have been overcome in a very short period of time suffer from those injuries, or suffer from whatever it is that they've got going on for years and years and years, where they shouldn't have been suffering. So when people trust themselves, then they will move forwards. When we create a safe space where we trust people and we trust in their ability, then magic happens. So when somebody believes they are capable, then they will be capable. If somebody truly doesn't believe it, and that can be a very difficult conversation to have, because, especially in my country where I live in Australia, we have this kind of, I guess, this tall poppy syndrome. And the tall poppy syndrome, it also extends to people not really telling you how they think or how they feel. Well, why would I do that? So when somebody comes into the studio, quite often you ask them how they are, and they'll say, "Oh, yeah, great, thanks." And then they'll walk in front of you towards the machine and they're hobbling. And you're like, "Oh, I thought that you were great today." "Oh, yeah, well, I am, but, just my hip is giving me curry." Well, that's not really great, is it? So part of that, when we don't have these open conversations, when we deny ourselves the reality of what it is that we're feeling, then how can we ever believe that we can move forwards? Because we don't even believe that we're worthy of being truthful. So when people believe they are capable, they are open to having difficult conversations and being realistic about how they're feeling, but they also have a deep seed in them that truly does believe that they're able to overcome whatever it is that they've got going on. People who believe that they are capable, they actually don't spend a lot of time going to, and I'm not anti mainstream healthcare. I don't use it myself, but I'm not anti. I'm all about people being able to choose. I'm all about body autonomy, 100%. Whatever it is that you think that you need, then that should be accessible to you. And you should never be bullied into choosing something that you don't want to do. So, but I do see that people who believe that they are capable of getting through whatever it is that they got going on, they don't really rely on the Western medical system. They don't go to a doctor if they got a headache, or, they're not on a lot of prescription medication. They normally have taken control of their lifestyle. They're eating a healthy diet. They're sleeping well. They've got healthy friends. They're reading healthy stuff. They're watching healthy stuff. So their entire lifestyle encompasses where they want to be. And then they believe that they're capable of getting past this injury or getting over whatever it is that they've got going on. But people that don't believe that they are capable, they're also the ones that are always looking for answers from someone else. And those answers quite often become an excuse as to why they are not able to move on. And ultimately, people who overcome adversity, they are driven by love rather than fear. So think of all the people that you've mixed with in your life. If you're already a Pilates professional, think of all of the people that you have served in your career, and maybe consider your friends, people that you went to school with, anyone in your community. People that are driven by love, they have all of these attributes that I've spoken about. They have a reason rather than an excuse. They are completely committed to overcoming, and they're committed to their own health. They take full responsibility. They don't use excuses. They have reasons. They trust in themselves more than they question things or more than they're seeking answers from others. They completely believe that they are capable, and they move forwards with love, compared to people who have excuses, people who are constantly, in this cycle of taking medication to band-aid symptoms that then leads to more medication that makes them miserable. They are driven by fear. And I'm sure if we considered, let's say, the year 2020, a multitude of people and the mass population were absolutely driven by fear. In fact, they were so fearful that they were willing to do completely irrational things. So when people are driven by fear, then they become irrational and they become dangerous to themselves and dangerous to others. So now we've moved past 2020. Goodness me, it seems like just yesterday. Plenty of people still have PTSD and anxiety from 2020. But those people who were driven by love, they took full responsibility for themselves. They never lived with fear. They were never scared of anything. They understood that their body was completely capable of overcoming everything and nothing bad happened. But the people that were driven by fear, the people that stood on the dots everywhere they went, the people who actually believed that they could go into a pub and if they were standing, then they were a danger to society. But if they were sitting, then they were completely safe. Everything that they were doing was completely illogical. None of it made sense. But their fear kept them doing silly little things all day long, every day. So when we are driven by love, we have courage, we have composure, we have the ability to overcome anything. And that love is both within us, it's around us, and it is part of our environment. So these are just, I guess, musings of things that I have observed over the years of working with people. And I believe that as a Pilates professional, it is our job to serve our community with love, from a place of love. And it is up to us to create a space where everybody can come into the studio and know that they are in a safe place, that we believe that whatever it is that they've got, they have the ability to overcome it, and that we are always working with somebody to help them reach their goals because we understand their reason why. Now, this is stuff that we talk about in the Pilates Pro Academy. This is something that we teach all of our teachers from the get-go, is the psychology of overcoming adversity, the psychology of reaching our goals. And this doesn't just happen for people who are overcoming something in the Pilates studio. This happens to all of us, no matter what it is that we're trying to deal with in life. And we see these things, these are the types of things that prevent our students from reaching their goals. These are the type of fears that hold people back. And this is what I think that we should be doing both in studio for all of our clients, but also in studio, if you've got a team, this is the type of stuff that we're talking about with our team. But this is also the type of things that we are teaching our student instructors from the get-go. Because what it is that we have as Pilates professionals is very powerful. And we really can change lives in a way that people don't even realize they are capable of until they start with us. This is the magic that Pilates is. Unfortunately, it's not a pill. Otherwise, I could sell magic pills and be a millionaire. But instead, I sell this magic potion that then allows people to take into their everyday life. I hope that this conversation makes a difference to the way that you work with people, the way that you understand yourself, and the way that you can open your studio and open your heart to your community to truly serve them. Thanks so much for joining me. This is only a short episode, but that's okay. My name's Katie Crane. I'm the Pilates professional. I cannot wait for you to sit down and listen to the next episode next Wednesday. Please like and share this episode with your community if you have anybody that you think that it could help. And of course, if you know anyone who is looking for support as a Pilates instructor, we have plenty of workshops available on our website, thepilatesprofessional.com.au. And of course, we do a 6-month mentoring program taking Pilates lovers towards their love of Pilates and opening up the ability for them to take their teaching out to the world with our 6-month mentoring program. I'll see you next week. My name's Katie Crane. I am the Pilates professional. Have a great day.